Some protests have been taking place during the royal family's Caribbean tour, with the royal family accused of having historically benefited from the slave trade in the British Empire. But what exactly are the monarchy's historical links to slavery? Is it the throne of blood? Join us as we time travel to unwind the truth. Recently, Buckingham Palace has announced that it's collaborating with a study exploring the relationship the British monarchy had with the slave trade. The research, a PhD project by historian Camilla de Koenig, is expected to be completed in 2026. Previously, during a trip to Rwanda last year, King Charles said that he could not describe the depths of his personal sorrow at the suffering caused by the slave trade. But neither he nor Prince William has publicly accepted the Crown's central role in the trade. Over a period of 270 years, 12 British monarchs sponsored, supported, or profited from Britain's involvement in slavery, according to historians. Britain was among the most dominant slave trading countries, and it's estimated to have transported 3.4 million Africans to British colonies in the Caribbean, North and South America. Slaves in British colonies were used for cultivating cash-backed crops like cotton and sugar and mining precious metals like gold. The royal family's links date back to the 16th century. In 1562, John Hawkins was the first known English person to include enslaved Africans in his cargo, a journey that was approved by Elizabeth I. The enslaved Africans were traded for goods including ginger and sugar. Sir John Hawkins hijacked a Portuguese slave ship off the coast of Sierra Leone, seized 300 African slaves, and sold them to plantation owners in the Caribbean. Hawkins would conduct multiple voyages to the Caribbean, challenging Portuguese dominance in slave trade, and being handsomely rewarded by Queen Elizabeth I for his efforts. Under the reign of King Charles II, from 1660 to 1685, the Crown and members of the royal family invested heavily in transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade was one leg of the triangular trade across the Atlantic. European manufacturing goods would be sold in Africa in exchange for slaves. These slaves would then be taken to the Americas. In exchange, commodities such as sugar, cotton, tobacco, and other cash crops would then be shipped back to Europe, becoming raw material for European manufacturers. Over 3.5 centuries, beginning in the 16th century, European slavers loaded approximately 12.5 million Africans onto slave ships that would take them across the Atlantic to the Americas. An estimate suggests that at least 1.5 million slaves perished during the journey alone. RACE, the Royal African Company of England, founded in 1663, has shipped more enslaved African women, men, and children to the Americas than any other single institution during the entire period of the transatlantic slave trade. From its very beginning, the company benefited deeply from its connections with the Crown. Members of the royal family were major shareholders, and the Crown's political backing was crucial for its success. In the 18th century, as more and more private players entered the business of slave trade, its volume grew drastically. Not only did it provide inexpensive labor to produce valuable commodities, historians have argued that profits for slave trade were essential for funding the Industrial Revolution. This was all at the cost of creating systemic problems in Africa, the effects of which can be felt till date. Regardless of the degree of the Crown's direct involvement, it was all done in the name of the king and in the benefit of the king's empire. William IV was king at the time slavery was abolished in 1883, but he had always opposed abolition. Before becoming king, he held the title Duke of Clarence and spent time in the Caribbean, and he devoted speeches in the Lords to defending slavery, arguing that it was vital to prosperity. He also argued that enslaved people were comparatively in a state of humble happiness. It is difficult to estimate just how much of the current royal family's wealth is owed to slavery, but it's understood that the profits of the slave trade funded the treasury, as well as Britain's industries, buildings, railways, roads, and parks. As the British Atlantic Empire became more reliant on the labor of enslaved Africans, critics of the slave trade and colonial slavery were marginalized or dismissed as radicals. Meanwhile, enslaved men and women took matters into their own hands, struggling against slavery and racist colonial regimes from below. By running away, refusing to work, feigning illness, and rebelling collectively over and over again, enslaved Africans and their descendants made it clear that their lives mattered. Did this dim your respect for the royal family? Let us know in the comments. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you wouldn't miss another update.